Hi, my name is Daisy Mendoza and I'm part of the NHPO Leadership Institute Class 3 Group 6. Today I had the chance to interview Mary Almendarez, one of the founding members of Hispanic Women in Leadership. The reason why I selected Mary is because of all of her volunteer work and what she's done in the Hispanic community. I feel like she's a very strong female role model for a lot of Hispanic women, and she has definitely inspired me, and so I'd like to introduce you to Mary Almendarez. I'd like to start by asking you a little bit about your background and what it was like growing up in your generation.
Well, I also want to thank you for honoring me with the interview, because it's not every day that somebody's being recognized, and you're doing that, and I appreciate it. Growing up in the 50s and 60s was an experiment that everybody should have gone through. You know, we were doing alive during the hippie era, during the Beatle era, the Brown Power along with the Black Power movement. Mm-hmm. So growing up in Houston was an exciting time, but it was also difficult. My background includes the fact that my mother was a widowed when I was 9 months old, having 10 children. I was the last one. And I was born outside of Richmond, Texas, in a place called Crab, Texas. It was a farm delivered by a midwife 61 years ago. But I've lived in Houston all my life, and I graduated from Jeff Davis High School in the near north side, and Marshall Middle School, used to be junior high, and also Luskin Elementary. And I did attend University of Houston for 2 years before I got married. And it was a very magical time, I think. It was fun. It was fun, and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work.
It sounds like you're the youngest of 10.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there were any difficulties that you faced with due to the fact that you were a young Hispanic woman growing up in that era? Do you feel like it was more difficult for you?
I believe, every era has its difficulties, and in our era, in the 50s and 60s when we were attending school, it was mostly Anglo and Hispanic in the same classrooms, and the good thing about it is that we learned our English very well. The bad thing is that they took the Spanish from us. In those days, if you spoke Spanish, they would send you to the principal and they would spank you. So I consider that getting the Spanish beaten out of us. Right. So it was difficult because I couldn't communicate with my mother, because in school you can't speak Spanish, so I'd go home not wanting to speak Spanish. And so as a result, I didn't learn my Spanish the way most kids should learn it. But later on, when I got my employment, I developed my Spanish again. But it was difficult because the counselors didn't seem to care about the Latino students. There were times when you knew that you weren't chosen for certain things because of who you were, which is not white.
So a clear distinction.
Oh yeah, and a lot of people, I think I saw it when my neighbors were not treated. For example, I had one neighbor lady who was beaten up by her husband, and the police were called. But whether it was because she was a plain-looking lady or because maybe the police didn't care, they didn't do anything. And in those days, it was difficult because women didn't have any rights. It wasn't that long ago women were allowed to have credit in their own name. Right. So we experienced a lot of that in the past. I became aware of it when the women's movement, I noticed how the white women were out there marching for equal rights. And knowing our background, we didn't even come close to what the Anglo women's rights, and they had more rights than we did. Right. So, and even to this day, if you think about it, the equality is not where it could be. And I think, for me, I believe the main reason is that lack of education in our community. We have a high percentage of dropout, and with the dropout comes the lack of education. With the lack of education comes not a good enough job, not a good enough housing, not a good enough health. All of the things that a good job will get you.
Right. Well, tell me a little bit about your career, and where that's taken you.
Well, I was very lucky. Like I said, I didn't graduate, but at the time, back in the 60s, the late 60s, when the federal government was still more open and you didn't have, in general, that much population graduating from college. Most of the population was graduating from high school. And so I was fortunate that I got into the civil service. When I got into the civil service, that means I had opportunity to work at different federal government agencies. And I ended up with the U.S. Department of Labor. And that offered really great opportunities. It allowed for women or men to go from a administrative clerical position to a professional position. So when I left the federal government 13 years ago, early retired, I was at a GS-12, which allowed me to have a good, what would you call it, retirement. So it was beneficial to me, but I can almost guarantee you the federal doesn't offer those positions anymore because the employment picture is so competitive. And if you want to get a good job, you're going to have a college degree.
Tell me a little bit about, your passions in life. What would be one of your passions that you would say that you've
My
pursued?
biggest passion is my granddaughter. I have one daughter, and I have one granddaughter. She's 2 years and 3 months, and she's the icing in my life. She is precocious. She's smart. Every grandmother says that. But there is absolutely nothing like being a grandparent, and I love my daughter, but when you have a grandchild, it's totally different. The love that's there and the attention that you have for them, and it's just amazing.
Compounded.
It's beautiful. And my real other passion is helping in the community. About 2001, 2002, I started fundraising and through my LULAC organization. And as a result of that, we were able to give scholarships. We started with $5,000 that we gave to 10 kids in 2002, and we've grown it. The best year was when we gave $55,000 to 60 kids in 2007.
That's awesome.
Well, it is a lot of work, but it's just so rewarding. We were able to give $44,000 last year, and this year we actually got a grant. So that means we're going to give $100,000 in scholarships through this one LULAC council this year.
I'm glad you touched on LULAC because I did a little bit of research on you, and I know you're very involved with them. Tell me a little bit more in depth, the type of work that LULAC does and your involvement, the extent of your involvement with them.
Well, LULAC is the oldest civil rights organization. If anybody knows what the NAACP is, it's a civil rights organization. They promote the causes for Black African Americans. And LULAC is the oldest civil rights advocacy organization it's 81 years old this year. And what it does, it does everything, promote good health, good education, everything to advocate for Latinos. And you can try to do all of the above, or you can focus. And we focused on education. We call ourselves the Education Council, but LULAC does a lot in every area, whether it's housing, health, advocating for voter registration, trying to get people elected. For example, the census that we all should be aware of and participate with to make sure that we get counted, because we all know that if we get counted, we're going to be able to bring some more of that tax dollar back to Houston. We're missing out a lot of money every time somebody doesn't get counted, and our community is always behind when it comes to being counted, getting registered to vote, voting, and we've been talking about the sleeping giants since the 50s, and it just hasn't happened because it's going to take you guys to motivate your peers to. Yeah, it really does. It really will.
And another organization I know that you were very, pivotal in helping found was Hispanic Women in Leadership. Tell me a little bit about what inspired you to help found that organization, and what was the purpose for that organization when you had that vision to start it?
Well, I won't take all credit. What it was, it really started when a group of women were getting together to have a conference. And as it turned out, it was for a nonprofit group which really wasn't dedicated to Hispanic women. It was dedicated for something else, and they were doing a fundraiser. That was what that conference, the first conference, was all about. And so when the Hispanic women started meeting and organizing, they felt like there were certain things that they felt should happen within that conference and focus more on Latinas and how to help them. And that wasn't the intention of that nonprofit. So as a result, we had that conference, and then we chose to be organized. And the reason we chose to be organized is because we know that unless we get ourselves organized and work on the issues of the day, because as you know, Latinos don't graduate in the good numbers that we should, they don't have the good jobs that we should, and all of the above. So what we thought we would do is focus in on Hispanic women and how we can network and how we can help each other and promote each other and just be a support system, and including scholarships. So I was kind of behind the scenes organizing it, but I was one of the founders of about 20, but I was the first president. And that was back in 88, 89.
That's awesome. What are your expectations for HWIL going forward?
Well, I hope it continues to do the good work that it set out to do. One of the main things that it had been doing was having annual conferences to bring in speakers, to have fashion shows, to do fundraising, to do things to help women help themselves. And since I'm not real attached in the sense that I go to their meetings and all of that, I'm not in the leadership position. So my expectations are whatever the board decides to work on, and I support them.
Okay. I'd like to talk a little bit about, maybe some of the struggles that you've had in life, and what has driven you to overcome those. How have you been able to overcome those struggles that
I can share that, and I won't get too specific because when I worked for the federal government, there is discrimination. A lot of people don't believe that it exists, but there is discrimination, and I did file a complaint, and that's part of the reason that I have early retirement is because we resolved our differences, and there is a gag order on it. But what had been the rule is that if you're a certain color and a certain type, then you're going to be moving up the ladder a lot quicker without difficulties. But I found that it was obstacles, and it's not obstacles that are not obtainable to reach. It's just individuals choose to put obstacles in front of you, so you have to maneuver however way you can to reach those areas that you want to achieve. And to me, it's all about being passionate, being persistent, and being true to yourself in the sense that you know what's right and what's wrong, and you know what you're gonna, you pick your battles and you choose which battles to fight, so that, because it wasn't just about me, it's about calling attention to the inequality that existed. And by the way, it exists. I wouldn't recommend what I went through to anybody because it is very expensive. A lot of people say, oh, there's discrimination, I need to go talk to the equal employment. You need to really document. That's what saved me, because I had a lot of evidence, because people are willing to lie and not tell the real truth just to get their side across. So if anybody would ever want to file a suit against any entity or any employment or anything of that sort, I would say make sure you have your ducks in a row. You document, because it will all come out in the long run. And it's insufficient to say he said or she said, and I know I have a good case, or I know I'm right. You have to have documentation, and that's what saved my day. And it was not easy, because going through these kind of challenges in the court system, it's very, very difficult, and it's very stressful. It's a struggle. It's a struggle to try to prevail and be sure that you succeed.
Now that we've talked a little bit about struggles, I'd also like to talk a little bit about, maybe some of your accomplishments, or at least those that you're most proud of, and how you achieve those, how you managed to achieve those.
Well, I think that raising a great daughter is the number one achievement. She's managed to get her degree in social work, and then she went on to get her master's, and she has a good job. She lives in Austin. I hate that. I'd like for her to be in Houston. And then she has a fabulous family, a great husband, and a wonderful grandbaby. That's my greatest achievement. But having done volunteer work for the Democratic Party, which I am very partial to, and meeting all the elected officials and knowing them on a first name basis and working with them, helping them get elected, that has opened up a lot of doors. I think, if anything, students should know that volunteerism is one of the best things that they can do to help them move forward, because when you can put that in your resume, politicians, people that are running for office, they can't pay you enough. So if you're willing to do it voluntarily, they love you and they'll appreciate you. So I would highly recommend that is something that every individual consider, volunteering, because it not only you're doing something for the community, but in the long run, I've gotten a whole lot more out of volunteering that I have. So my over 35 years of volunteering is really my other claim to fame. Yeah, yeah, it really is, because having given to the community, it is one, isn't it? But that and being involved with the Hispanic women group, and then being involved with LULAC and raising scholarships, to me, once you've given a student some keys to see, we only give like 500 or 1,000 or 2,000, and it's not a lot of money. But one of the things that we accomplish by, beyond paying books maybe, also we lift their self-esteem. We let them know that they're worthy of receiving some monies that could go to somebody else, but it went to them because we thought so much of them, and I think it helps the self-esteem.
I agree. What drives you, Mary? What motivates you to?
Well, because I see our Latino population, we're almost the majority here in just Houston alone, we're over 40%. Yet, the people that are the CEOs, the managers, the supervisors of those offices downtown are not brown faces. They are not our community, and what we need to do is educate more of our people so they can have those good jobs and be the leaders that we should be.
And what do you think are some things that we should be doing as a community to help nurture leadership mentalities in our youth?
Well, I think more of us need to be in the schools, be in areas where we can offer our support, whether it's mentoring, whether it's collecting monies for scholarships, or any way that anybody can contribute to students. It is going to make a huge difference, because, we have a lot of parents that unfortunately maybe have 2 or 3 jobs, maybe they're dysfunctional, all those kind of issues that are not giving all the nurturing. One of my mentors is Dr. Ninfa Cavazos, who happens to be first Hispanic Latina lawyer, doctor, psychiatrist in the city of Houston, first Latina. And she's still alive, and she's probably in her late, probably close to 90 something. Anyway, I'm not going to say her age because I think she doesn't want me to. But she's a great person. But she retired from the juvenile probation department as a psychiatrist, and she said in one of her talks to the women, she was one of our first speakers, she said, the reason we have so many problems with the dropout, with gangs, with graffiti, with teen pregnancy and all that is because the children are not getting the nurturing on the first few years of their lives. And so therefore these babies, these kids that grow up are looking for immediate satisfaction, and they don't get it, but they think they're getting it from gangs and all these bad things. So if the parent would put more attention and more, if we're going to have kids, we may as well do everything in our power to make that child completely as well nourished, well nurtured as we can possibly, and I try to do that with my child, and I would hope that but if you read the news, there's so much abuse, there's so many problems and all of that. So if we could do as a community more service in our community, because if we don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. I mean, I don't expect the Anglos to come and help us. I don't expect the blacks. We need to help ourselves help the ones that are coming after us. And I'm totally committed to that.
Absolutely. What do you think are the traits of a good leader, in your opinion?
Well, having a passion, having persistence, perseverance, having a desire to make a difference and to change or help influence other people's lives to the betterment, because being a leader, you have to demonstrate what you're all about, and the proof is in the pudding. If you're out there doing things, people recognize that and they want to support you. When I do what I do, it's not because Mary wants to do it. It's because we have a vision of how we can improve and help our community, and people hear that, so they're willing to support those kind of efforts.
Absolutely. What do you think we could be doing also as a community to help inspire Hispanic talent to run for political positions?
Well, I think to inspire them is to put them in places where they can hear leaders. You know, it didn't take me but one time in elementary to go see a play at the University of Houston. It was A Tempest, and I fell in love with the arts after that. So if you expose kids, you know, it used to be they take us on field trips and things like that, and we don't hardly do that anymore. But if we were to open doors, show them what's available, then the possibility of that child is going to want to reach out. You know, I have a nice home that I had purchased 1976 and then 1960. But until I went to visit a friend that had a house like the one that I ended up getting, I didn't know those kind of homes existed. I was out of my box. I was totally unfamiliar with what's out there. So once you see what's out there and then you see a role model Latino, well, then you think, well, if they can do it, I can do it too. You see, and so there's not enough role modeling, there's not enough programs to help our kids have their eyes open. But in addition to giving students opportunities to meet leaders and volunteering is one of the best ways that people learn on-the-job training on anything you want to learn, whether it's how to write letters, whether doing computer work or going out and knocking on doors. Volunteering, whether it's to register people to vote or whether it's to go to a school and read to the kids, that makes a difference. Every little thing we do makes a difference.
How long do you think before we'll have a Hispanic president?
Well, it won't be long, but it's going to take an individual like Obama. I happen to have heard his story. I ran into it and I bought it. And what it is, it seems like he was positioned for it. His mother, the way she trained him and had a lot of schooling. And like one of the things he said, she got him up like at 3 o'clock in the morning and says, it's no ball of, it's no picnic for me, buddy, but you need to get up and you need, because it's struggle. My daughter used to say when she was going to school, oh, Mom, it's so hard. I don't know. Look, if it were easy, everybody would be rich. But life is not easy. And we just need to get out of this thing where we should have life easy. It's going to take some work. We have to sacrifice.
Well, thank you so much for, giving me this time to spend with you and get to know you a
Well,
little bit
thank
better. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
I appreciate it very, very much that you took the time to invite me, and I'm honored. I really am, and I'm pleased to have been here.